What's up, everyone? I'm Chris, and I'm joined by Sam from Noizze UK. Today, we'll talk about new Employed to Serve record, Fallen Star. Sam, it is a sunny Friday, early evening. We broke up from work today. I have coffee. It's a good day to be alive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not too bad at all. It's not too bad at all. It's nice to
Great
be on
day to exist.
this end of Friday than it is at the waking up having a full day of work ahead. So I am very buzzing to be here, and I'm really happy to be here to talk about what we're about to be talking about as well.
Gonna say, man, we've got a right record to jump into here, haven't we?
I think we have, mate. Yeah, we
I don't
have.
want to hang around too long before we do that. Quickly, just to let you know who we are. Noise UK. You can follow us on X at Noise Podcast, as well as following the Noise platform in general at Noise UK on X, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. You should head to noise.co.uk for all your latest news, album reviews, features, and interviews. A quick plug for Noise Fest that is happening on the 26th of April. Unbelievable stacked lineup that our owner extraordinaire Jack Holloway's put together there, from Unpeople, Continents, Knife Bride, just huge eclectic list of bands that are just excellent in the scene. Myself and Sam will be there. We'll be conducting interviews and having an excellent time. You can get tickets; they're still available. I think we've sold about 70%. So there's a few left. Last year we sold out; them are non-available on the door. So if you're considering it, now would be a good time to get that purchase in. Sam, should we get going here?
I'd love to, mate. I'd love to.
Let's have it. Fallen Star by Employed to Serve is out on April 25th via Spinefarm Records. It's the band's fifth album and the follow-up to 2021's Conquering. So it has been a while, to be fair, since Employed to Serve have released a new album. However, it is worth mentioning that Justine and Sammy in the band, they run Church Road Records, so they are busy a lot. So I can't imagine they have the ability to be like, should we just record a new album? Because they also run a record label. Sam, with Employed to Serve, I think it's kind of interesting to think about, like, because I think I discovered them slightly before yourself.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember that I reviewed their second album, The Warmth of a Dying Sun. I think it was like 2017, and I remember at the time there was like a real buzz about them. Like they were this new, like upcoming brash mathcore band. And Warmth of a Dying Sun was a brilliant album. I think myself and I think I then told you about them. And we saw them on that tour in the
Yeah, we did.
Slade Rooms in
Yes,
Wolverhampton
that's right. Like
for a
2017, something
fiver.
like that.
For a
Yeah,
fiver. Do you remember those
yeah.
days?
Yeah, I do. Oh,
Good,
I
wasn't it,
do.
though?
Yeah, that it was really good actually. We had a great time.
And and do you know what's kind of fascinating? Because at that time, they then morphed into not just a mathcore band, but like one of the best underground metal bands in Britain, along with the likes of Conjurer at the time. And I think for me now, they're just one of the best British metal bands, full stop. So just before we get into this album, I'm not sure how you feel about that statement, but I feel quite confident in saying that.
Oh God, yeah. Oh God, yeah. That was definitely the case after the 2021 record, Conquering. We were talking about just how brilliant that was. That was like a top 10 album of the year that year for me. And it was just an affirmation of their sort of steady rise. And I think this is probably a continuation of that, really. We'll get into the review shortly.
Yeah, I'm confident enough to say, Sam, that for me, I think this is Employed to Serve's most complete album. Whilst also, I would say as well, I know this sounds like such a lame, stereotypical thing to say that could be included in any written review literally ever written, but it's also like quite bold and brave and experimental, as well as being that this classic kind of acidic heavy metal record.
Yeah, I think so. This is definitely their most in-depth and versatile record to date. Alongside the traditional employed to serve sentences that I put into my notes. There were comparisons here that I felt to sort of hard rock bands and other metal bands in genres in which I didn't think that Employed to Serve were really sort of dipping into.
Yeah,
And it's actually a more guitar-led record than Conquering was,
it is.
quite significantly. And there seems to be much more of an emphasis placed on the melodic interplay between guitarists rather than simply, and I say simply not as a pejorative, but simply just as a state of comparison, rattling from heavy verse, heavy breakdown, heavy chorus, and just sort
Mm.
of maximizing the aggression, so to speak, that the bands tend to do. Whereas there's a greater sense of contrast, dark and light. And really a more expansive approach to songwriting that I, for one, have found a very welcome addition to their repertoire.
Well, I'd just like to jump straight in and start talking about the first 10 seconds of Treachery. uh, because
Yeah,
it
that part's not
opens in
introspective, is it particularly, is it?
honestly that opening, it's like the dream opening of any metal record ever. It's an isolated snare drum shot that leads into this classic frenetic employed to serve style, and there's like that kind of Tom Araya Slayer like scream that goes over the top of the instrumentation, and I was immediately like, lads, what is happening? It's kicking off. It's to 10 seconds in. I thought that was a thing of beauty, that opening.
Yeah, completely agree. It's a brilliant opening song generally, because immediately I'm like, I didn't expect these guys to mess around. I didn't expect these guys to like delay anything. I think Conquering felt that where it was just like you were immediately being hit in the face, and that sort of continued here. And the groove in the center of it is terrific. The breakdown is usually typically excellent. So I just walked away thinking, okay, that's a statement of an opening track, and I completely agree. This is not an album that sort of waits for you to get into it. This is a kick the door down kind of approach to opening. Completely agreed.
I think Justine's vocals on this album are the best I've heard from her. I think she's exceptional. She's exceptional throughout this entire album.
I would agree. I also love the interplay between the two vocalists generally. I think it offers a bit
Yeah.
of um a real sense of contrast, and I hadn't noticed it to the same degree in previous Employed to Serve records, but there's a real tonal shift, and I think that really behooves the band in terms of the songs that they're putting together, and actually probably maybe because of the tonal shift of some of these songs that they may be emphasizing or putting into a spotlight some of these vocals that are taking place here, and there's a little bit more room for the versatility because some of the songwriting here has taken a major step forward. Um, so like when are we going to start talking about that? Can we move to that now, please? Because I want to talk a little bit about not so much Fallen Star, which is just a brilliant song anyway, with a fantastic metalcore riff, and there's almost like a kill switch engage machine at style. I actually want to talk about Atonement because that is not necessarily a song that kind of fits with my expectations when I read featuring Will Ramos. Um, because it's a really, really, really great song, but also I think the solo, I think it's like in a major key in the background of this. And I think there are harmonies, and I think this is a big thundering hard rock kind of not poppy necessarily, but with kind of little seasoning, little sprinklings of pop stylings, with like a real rock sensibility. And I thought, oh, Will Ramos is in this, it's going to be like a deathcore song, and it just isn't. To combine the appearance of Ramos with the type of song it is an incredibly ambitious decision, and I think it actually pays off. And I know that recent Lorna Shore songs have had Will Ramos sort of tentatively trying out a little bit of melody and stuff like that, and he's not necessarily here as a melodic addition, but to have him and have the opportunity of writing something that could be really guttural and really dark, and actually choosing to have him as part of a song that I think has moments of a lighter shade of Employed to Serve was an interesting decision. I actually think it's really good, and I really liked it. What did you think of that song?
Well, I think that the best thing I could say about Atonement is that I actually think the real show stealer of that song is the final 50 seconds.
Yes.
The loop, the breakdown riff around Justine's growls. It's incredible. And I
Yeah.
think like that's a statement in itself, isn't it? The song with Will Ramos on, Will Ramos isn't the best thing about it.
Yeah,
Listen,
absolutely.
listen to just what I said, because I think Will Ramos is, I'm comfortable in saying he's one of the best vocalists in metal slash extreme metal. However you want to look at it, I think he's a phenomenon. And
Yeah.
he's not the best
Yeah.
thing about the song.
No, no.
Justine on the last 50 seconds is unbelievable. And the breakdown that they wrap around her vocal growls is really, really something, man. So yeah, I loved the Atonement. And I remember when they first released it as a single, I think I put out on our X account that yeah, you know what? The draw is, oh my God, it's Will Ramos in an Employed to Serve song. But do you know what? Like there's a saying from WrestleMania 3 that Hogan and Andre drew the crowd, but Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat stole the crowd, like because they had the best match. So okay, Will Ramos like might draw the like 600,000 listens extra that this track might receive over its lifetime, but I think the show stealer will still be Justine's moment in the last 50 seconds.
I think that's a really nice analogy there. We've got to hit the we've got to tick the got wrestling
You're
reference
not gonna
in.
get wrestling into every review. Come
On
on.
gonna tick that off the bingo card. Put a penny in the jar. It's like me with Metallica or American sports. It's just right there. It's just right there. It's just low hanging
I
fruit. But
couldn't resist that one then.
no,
I
no.
couldn't
But I
resist that one.
completely agree. I completely agree. It's a tremendous song, and it shows for those reasons, and it shows the sort of growth of the band that they are not. They are using a collection of features, but they're not dependent on them. I'll
Yeah.
talk about a little bit of those
Oh yeah.
later on, obviously. I think this album just sort of does go from different strength to different strength. I really think there's some really nice decisions here that actually really pay off. I think the black metal styling a little bit on the piano or synth opening on breaks me down, and then I think by the end of it, I was like, bloody
North
hell,
Lane vibes, are you?
a little bit. But at the end, I was like, is this kind of what I wish Spirit Box sounded like? Like a little bit.
Yeah, I get that.
Like
I get
like
that.
like if you just if you took away the fact that she's an incredible vocalist, the lead singer of Spirit Box, and injected just a little bit more aggression and sort of riff work, it does sound like at times this is sort of trying to bridge that gap, and I really think it works. And then you sort of move forward through these some of these songs in the middle of the section of this. Traditional metal songs like Familiar Pain, Brother Stand By Me, Now Thy Kingdom Come are Machine Head style song structures, with powerful harmonies, with thudding breakdowns that don't really verge onto sort of death metal or deathcore. And by neither Now Thy Kingdom Come, I was like, okay, this is like a guitar based album for me. This is sort of like the other way. We've swung the pendulum the other side here. And then by the end of it, I'm like, this is just great metal, like Ron Seal simplicity, sort of breakdown to finish, just really, really good work. And they appear to have turned themselves into like an incredibly polished, professional, buttoned up metal band that are capable of the instrumental flair that I would have suggested was something that I didn't hear on the previous records. They appear to have found that and added that in as an additional layer to their sound, and I think they are better for it.
Well, I wanted to talk about the one-two punch of Brother Stand Beside Me and Now Thy Kingdom Come because I
Yeah.
mentioned just as we started to get into the review that this is the most experimental that I've heard employed to serve. And Brother Stand By Me, you've got the production by Lewis Johns of the guitars on this album is absurd, by the way. But specifically on Brother Stand By Me, when you hit the outro, they've used that kind of refrain of the low and slow riff, and then they've got I'm gonna say the phrase "whoa-ohs," which sounds incredibly nerve-wracking, but you know what? Having listened to the song, you know what I mean, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
You got those kind of slow, ominous "whoa-ohs" that like run around the slow riff and it gave me huge Gojira vibes. And
Yeah, that's a
I
good
know,
shout.
and I was massively, massively here for it. I thought, man, this is clear. This is so Gojira. Not in the sense of like a copy of Gojira, but it's just that kind of that you can tell it. The Gojira style has definitely influenced Employed to Serve, and why wouldn't it? Because Gojira, they are one of the goats.
Mm.
And then Now Thy Kingdom Come is probably my favorite track on the album because out of nowhere, Employed to Serve apparently become a gent band because like the tonality and the rhythm of the ending Julian guitars genuinely sounds like something Periphery would write. And
Yeah, I would
essentially,
agree with that.
I think it indicates this idea that Employed to Serve they're just a great metal band. Full stop. Now there was a time when
Yes,
they were a great mathcore band. There was a time when you could say they were a great hardcore band, but now I think Employed to Serve are just a great metal band.
I agree with
That
that.
Now Thy Kingdom Come is just something I could never have envisioned. When the first time I listened to The Warmth of a Dying Sun or Eternal Forward Motion, which was released in 2019, if I remember correctly, there's just no way I could have envisaged Employed to Serve becoming this kind of wide, like multi-scoped metal band that could pretty much do anything across the metal landscape. And now, like Kingdom Come, is essentially a gent track. Like it's a mate. It's so well written, and they've got no right, to be honest, to be able to write a. I'm going to call it a gent track, even though I'm not
Loosely.
loosely. Yeah, I'm going to call it a gent track because I think it's closer to gent than anything else. But it's not like Periphery in the sound of like a 12-minute like soundscape. But I just think that they're like in the companies like just indicative of the absurd growth that Employed to Serve have made as a band, and they're doing something there that I could just never have envisaged them doing 6, maybe even 5 years ago. And then you get the dual 1-2 punch, Sam, of the guest spot, sorry, from Serena Cherry on Last Laugh and Jesse Leach on Whose Side Do You Want? It's not bad, is it? Serena
Not at
Cherry,
all.
like from Svalbard, obviously, and Jesse Leach, obviously from Killswitch Engage. Look, Will Ramos, Serena Cherry, and Jesse Leach, just the three guest spots on the record. Not
Decent.
bad.
Yeah, yeah, that'll do, won't it? I really like this. I think Last Laugh is probably my favorite song on the album. I think that what they do really, really well is that they, lo and behold, like what an idea, is that they change the style of the song to suit the addition of the new vocalist.
Yeah, yeah,
Rather than sort of bolting on the addition of a vocalist to something that they are producing in which makes it sound sort of disjointed or anything else. It's the whole song with the clean choice of guitar is just perfectly suited to the kind of involvement that Serena Cherry would have from a work at Svalbard. It's just a beautiful, beautiful song. The
that
return of the
juxtaposition between like Serena's vocal beauty and Justine's tenacity makes for a
yeah.
really fascinating listen.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really, really nice. I think the 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 addition of the guitar alongside some of these choruses and they're using the clean guitar as a kind of motif and the using it at the end sort of really sort of concluding feel to the song. I just think it's terrific. And obviously using Whose Side You On, they use Jesse Leach correctly.
Yeah, yeah,
That they use him terrifically on the break and the chorus, and then uses sort of his violent vocals on those breakdown openings. That mosh call is really perfect. And then again, they have that nice guitar to conclude that gives it the pomp of a kill switch sort of song as well.
yeah,
Um, though the Renegades, right? I was like the end of this. I really liked it by the way. The guitar play off at the start is just beautiful. It builds
yeah.
nicely. There's like a late era Slipknot riff to follow. And the chorus was really, really cool. And then there was a hard rock sensibility in the post-chorus transitions. And I was like, Rise Against? Question mark?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
not good shape that is. The chorus on the Renegade slaps as well.
yeah, it really, really does. It really, really does. And I found myself thinking, man, this is a completely different record to what I expected from the versatility standpoint, and that sort of continued with the final 30 to 60 seconds on From This Day Forward is just beautiful. That feels a bit like Svalbard-esque too, and a little bit sort of progressive, although not in the sense of like an expansive um, time consuming section of a song, but
Yeah.
really the sort of the layering of the songs and the layering of the riffs, really, really enjoyable. And it's sort of concluded an album where I thought, man, this is both exactly what I expected in terms of quality, but not at all what I expected in terms of content.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and
it's a
I
good
think
shout. That's a fair point.
like it's as good as I expected the Employed to Serve album to be, but not in the way that I expected it to be, even in the slightest at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive sort of compliment that I can pay to this band that sort of concludes one of the better metal records I've heard, and a confirmation, as you say, that they really are just A grade metal band. This is just a further confirmation of that.
Yeah, do you know what? Just for me to add on to your point there, Whose Side You On with Jesse Leach is probably the only really predictable song on the record in terms of its sound. I don't mean that as like it's predictable and boring to listen to. I mean because it's the most unhinged, unleashed, and abrasive track on the album. So I expected this record to have 12 of Whose Side Do You One's on, if that makes sense. Yeah, you got the double time riffs, the sneer of Jesse's guest tones, the pinching lead riff that sits underneath the chorus. They give Jesse Leach the floor to introduce the mosh call, which is a great shape because the track absolutely kicks off. We all love it when they play the breakdown riff, but slower moments, and this track absolutely has that. And I thought that Fallen Star would be 12 of those types of track, and actually, it's more like two or three of those type of tracks. And
It emphasizes the
elsewhere,
growth of the band, doesn't it?
yeah, and
That's
elsewhere,
the song that stands out.
yeah, and elsewhere, it's employed to serve kind of showcasing that growth, becoming something bigger and better. And I really think that this is the best thing that they've done. And that's not always something that we say about a band when they try to expand, is it? So many times you love album X, Y, and Z, and then all of a sudden they throw a D into the mix, and you wonder where it's come from, and you feel like there's a slight misstep. But in this case, Employed to Serve have managed to achieve the growth and a growth in quality and growth in sound simultaneously and experimentation. And I think that I'm going to say again that Now Thy Kingdom Come is the moment where you realise that, wow, this band had just expanded to something bigger than what I expected them to be. And do you know what? Employed to Serve, they may never reach the heights of like headlining the O2 Academy, etc. But I think they'll, for those that kind of keep their ear to the ground and pay attention, I think they'll always be referred to as like one of the great metal bands that were produced in the tens and twenties.
I completely agree. I find myself just really marveling at the sort of growth I've made because it's so tangible to see the increase in quality and the increase in courage that you see just year on or album on album for this band. And you don't mind them taking 3 or 4 years to make a record if the output is so very clearly a step forward from
Yeah.
the previous one, that indicates that they've really have sat down and thought about what the next step is. I read the PR notes that talked about really trying to gun for their place in metal to sort of reflect the tradition of the genre, and it does feel like they've sort of paid homage a little bit to that with some of the songwriting decisions, really. And I think that that's their testament to try and do something like that if that is the case, but also the fact that they've successfully managed to make a record that simultaneously is as good as everything I'd expect from them, but doesn't really sound like anything they've produced previously, is a real achievement. I think this is an excellent record.
I'm going to close off with a question, Sam. Um,
Yeah.
Fallen Star or Zenith by Believe From Within?
That is a good one. Ooh, I would say that hmm, this just about.
I would also say this. Not too often that we agree on things like that. I would also
No,
say this.
I'm glad we're recording just to crystallize
Yeah.
the moment.
I would also say this.
Yeah,
It's braver.
it's terrific. Yeah, absolutely. It gets additional points for me for taking chances. 100%.
Can't think of a better way to leave the episode off than that, really. I want to thank you all for listening. Myself and Sam will be back as soon as possible, hopefully, with the review of the new Machine Head album. Up until that point, please follow us on X at Noise Podcast. You can follow the Noise platform in general at Noise UK on X, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. And the best way to support us is by subscribing, hitting that subscribe button on YouTube. We will be back as soon as possible. Remember your tickets for Noise Fest. It's been a pleasure. Keep it heavy and listen to Employed to Serve Fallen Star on April 25th. And April 25th, sorry. Thank you for joining us. Keep it heavy. Bye.